outdoors.
Our Better Living patio room, we have the extra space we need at a price we could afford.
It makes a great playroom for the children, especially on rainy days.
Or a quiet place to get away from it all. Relax and enjoy the view.
Our Better Living patio room has improved the looks and value of our home. It's made our home a better place to live.
It's spacious, durable, and virtually maintenance-free, which gives us more time for the things that we really enjoy.
Maybe you should add a Better Living patio room to your lifestyle.
Patio rooms and seamless siding, too. We're your home improvement specialists from inside out. How do I know? I'm Jeff Harding from ABC Seamless. Call us and find out more.
Call now and save $700 on our seamless siding or patio room additions. Operators are on duty, so call ABC Seamless now for your free consultation. ABC, seamless siding, and now patio rooms, too.
This is CNN.
A settlement in a price-fixing case could mean refunds for airline passengers.
And a judge sticks it to the man once known as the Teflon Don. Welcome to News Hour in Washington. I'm Reid Collins.
And from CNN Center in Atlanta, I'm Bobbie Battista. Convicted New York mobster John Gotti was sentenced to life in prison today on racketeering and murder charges. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of Gotti supporters protested the sentence. CNN's Charles Feldman is at the courthouse and joins us now by phone. Charles?
Yeah, Bobbie, we've made considerable progress from the last time I reported in. Then, which was about 45 minutes ago or so, I was stuck inside the federal courthouse, which was sealed off. Now I am stuck outside the federal courthouse. They're allowing people to leave, but nobody's allowed inside the building. Why? An estimated 1,000-plus supporters of John Gotti started arriving here by buses from as far away as the state of New Jersey and as close as Gotti's neighborhood in Queens, New York. They came here to protest what they say was the unfair conviction of mafia kingpin John Gotti, who, as you pointed out, has now been sentenced to life behind bars without parole. It was not, however, a peaceful demonstration. There were several clashes as the protesters tried but failed to storm the federal courthouse, being rebuffed by a combination of New York City police officers and U.S. federal marshals. But there was a bizarre scene inside the building when the head of the FBI office for the New York region was stuck inside the federal courthouse along with countless camera crews as well as John Gotti's legal defense team. Also, the prosecutors were trapped inside, I might add. Outside, according to the U.S. Marshals Service, there were 5 arrests. I personally witnessed the minor injuries, or apparently minor injuries, of 2 New York City police officers. The ugliest scene happened a few minutes ago when a small splinter group of the protesters started smashing the windows of cars that they were able to identify as those belonging to the federal marshals, cars parked in front of the courthouse. One federal marshal's car was actually overturned by the crowd. But about 10 minutes ago, a young gentleman with a bullhorn started telling everybody to get back on board the buses. And back on board the buses, in fact, they went. And so now most of the crowd has been dispersed. The situation appears to be calm, but, the big but, the courthouse is still sealed off and nobody is allowed to enter. As for John Gotti and his co-defendant, his former underboss, Frank Locascio, both will now be behind bars for life without parole, unless, of course, they manage on appeal to win a new trial. Bobbie?
Charles, a couple of questions. Who were most of these people, relatives or employees? And what was Gotti's reaction to the sentence?
Well, in answer to the first question, it's hard to say who all of the people were because there were so many of them. I did ask some if they were paid because in the past, when there have been some smaller demonstrations, nothing quite like this, I might add, prosecutors have sort of suggested to reporters that perhaps some of these people were paid by the Gambino family that Gotti heads to be down here. But the people that we spoke to today denied receiving any payment, and as I pointed out, some said they didn't even come from the Queens neighborhood where Gotti lived. Some said they came all the way from New Jersey. As to the other question, Gotti's reaction, Gotti took the sentencing in his normal manner. He had a smug and some might say smirk on his mouth, which has been the one that he's displayed throughout most of the trial. We're told by his lawyer that he himself decided, along with his counsel, not to say anything when asked by the judge before sentencing, as is customary, whether he wanted to say anything. But his lawyer did say that after the sentencing, he patted his co-defendant on the back and said, "We've only begun to fight."
All right, our thanks to CNN's Charles Feldman reporting live from New York. Reid?
Well, the passengers who've flown on one of 4 major U.S. airlines anytime over the past 4 years may be getting a break on their next ticket. American, United, Delta, and U.S. Air have agreed, if the courts allow it, to issue more than $300 million worth of discount coupons. The 4 airlines agreed to the settlement to end a price-fixing lawsuit. CNN's Al Hinman reports.
The next rush for discount air travel could be passengers trying to get a piece of the airline's antitrust price-fixing settlement. In the new agreement, American, Delta, United, and U.S. Air deny any wrongdoing. Northwest and TWA reached a totally separate settlement earlier. The airlines contend they were not fixing prices as they entered their fares into a centralized computer clearinghouse tied ultimately to travel agent reservation systems. The class action lawsuit disputes that, estimating that more than 12 million passengers could have been hit with artificially high fixed fares during the past 3.5 years. Regardless of blame, getting a piece of the proposed settlement could depend on how organized or what kind of pack rat you are. If you've paid for and used a domestic ticket on the 4 airlines between January 1st, 1988 and the end of this month, you can file a claim. However, as a Delta spokesman cautions, no one knows exactly how the refund program will work. The first step comes next month, with the mailing of some 10 million notification letters and a series of advertisements seeking other potential claimants for a share of the more than $360 million worth of discount air travel coupons. The proposed 10 to 20% discount coupons may require some sort of proof of past travel. Who keeps all their old tickets and boarding passes?
No, I don't keep them. I doubt it.
I had my receipt from Delta last year. I went to Florida.
If you want to get your name on the claim notification list, write to Airline Antitrust Litigation, Post Office Box 209, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19107. Then be prepared to wait, perhaps until year's end. Some passengers say they're still waiting for what they feel are fair and consistent airline prices.
I think that it's absolutely totally unfair to people that are flying to take advantage of us like that.
Al Hinman, CNN, Atlanta.
There is a rail tie-up looming in the United States at midnight tonight, and President Bush is saying in the White House he is hopeful that the U.S. Congress will move in and prevent or at least stop the strike once it gets started. The president recalled that's what happened, a congressional act that cleared up another rail strike just as it was getting underway. Midnight is the deadline set for a coast-to-coast walkout. Talks were continuing today between Amtrak and the unions representing employees of the passenger train service. But an Amtrak spokesman says there's been little progress and the railway is getting ready for the strike, cutting back on its long-distance train service today, canceling its service tomorrow and Thursday between Washington and New York. The House Judiciary Committee heard some testimony today from the author of a controversial 1989 State Department memo. It regarded the possible Iraqi diversion of U.S. agricultural credits with which to buy weapons. State Department sources tell CNN that Frank LeMay's memo had been read to the Secretary of State James Baker shortly before Baker was lobbying to expand the Farm Credit Program. LeMay testified today that he was asked to arrange a meeting with the USDA to discuss rumors and allegations of Iraqis' misuse of those U.S. funds.
The meeting was convened at our request. I went, I took careful, sometimes verbatim notes on what was said. I asked for clarifications of points that were unclear to me. I drafted the memo on the day of the meeting from those notes. I left all of my files on Iraq with the Office of the Undersecretary upon my departure. To the best of my knowledge, the files were not retained in that office. I do not know if they were retired or destroyed after I left, nor do I know what documents that may have been in these files have been made available to the Congress.
The committee is considering whether to request a special prosecutor or independent counsel investigate the Bush administration's policy toward Iraq just before the Gulf War.
The U.S. is tightening the diplomatic screws on Yugoslavia to protest what it says is a humanitarian nightmare in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The U.S. blames the Belgrade government for the fighting there, and Secretary of State James Baker says he will ask President Bush to expel Yugoslavia's ambassador to Washington, close the Yugoslav consulate in Chicago, and seek to exclude Serbia and Montenegro, the only remaining Yugoslav republics, from international organizations, including the UN. Secretary Baker decried the continued Serbian guerrilla attacks on Sarajevo, saying it is an outrage and inhuman. And he said the U.S. will consult with allies to assure humanitarian aid gets to the Bosnian capital. However, he did not outline any military actions. A new poll shows American voters are increasingly unhappy with George Bush, Bill Clinton, and now Ross Perot. In a three-way presidential race, the New York Times CBS News poll found President Bush leading with 34%, Ross Perot with 32%, and Bill Clinton with 24%. The same poll showed Perot's disapproval rating jumped from 9% to 20% in 6 weeks. Only 34% approved of the way the president is doing his job, and Clinton's approval rating fell by 10 points to just 16%. Well, Bill Clinton got approval and money at a Broadway fundraiser last night. Broadway entertainers put on a high-priced show that poked fun at George Bush, Dan Quayle, and Ross Perot while raising funds for Clinton. This morning on ABC, Clinton said he has scaled back his plans for a middle-class tax cut because the deficit has gotten bigger. Coming up in a couple of minutes on NewsHour, a visit to the underground world of drug dealing, the story of an undercover cop who got caught in the swirl of drugs and danger. At 25 minutes past the hour, the government rushes approval of a drug that may help fight AIDS. And at 54 minutes past the hour, a look at Thailand's sex industry and how authorities may be cracking down.
We were having fun until Thomas put in our new money management program.
Select your investments.
All these investment categories popped up.
Stocks, bonds, T-bills.
That's easy. We only have one.
Why?
That's when I wondered, does everyone have all these?
Common sense says any investment plan should be diversified, and Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, can make it easy.
Last night, it really hit us.
This place sounds like Wall Street tonight.
We can barely keep up with our work, let alone our investments. That's when I decided I'm going to find something that can do it all.
I'm going to do some research.
You can make just one investment in Fidelity Asset Manager, a mutual fund that gradually adjusts its portfolio for changing markets with no sales charge. It can be great for an IRA, too. So call Fidelity now for a free fact kit on how to diversify in one easy step with Fidelity Asset Manager. Call 1-800-356-8100. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
Thermos, a name that stands for quality and innovation, takes a bold new step in the design of gas grills. Introducing the Minute Grill Limited Gas Barbecue. It features the Minute Grill factory assembly. Go from carton to cooking in no time. The deluxe cooking system distributes heat evenly while reducing flare-ups. Add the aluminum side shelves and adjustable top vent, and you have a gas grill like no other. The Minute Grill Limited Gas Barbecue, only from Thermos.
How fast does Ambisol start to relieve toothache pain? Before you can say,
Ambisol.
Canker sore pain? Before you can say,
Ambisol.
Relieve minor mouth pain on contact with Ambisol in regular or maximum strength.
Now on home video from Turner Home Entertainment. The crime was simple.
We got your boy.
But nothing would ever be simple again. Sybil Shepherd, Memphis. Now available from Turner Home Entertainment.
The war against drugs is measured in more than just statistics on arrests and seizures. It has its human side. The battles within America's inner cities can take a tremendous toll on the people who fight them, a toll sometimes paid with lives. CNN Special Assignment Correspondent David Lewis reports.
I turned and he grabbed me, threw me against the wall, and put the knife to my throat. And he said, "Give me your money."
Undercover cop Jeff Coy.
And I looked at him, and he went to flinch like he was going to stab me. Just as he did that, I pulled out my gun and I shot him.
An undercover drug deal gone sour.
Just a horrid scene.
Another day on the job for Jeff Coy.
Tough place.
He was ready to die for this issue, to make the community safe.
Curtis Jones was Coy's boss.
He came in a nice kid. We somehow, and I say created a monster, it is not in that sense of a monster, but we created a person capable of dealing in any environment.
And he was screaming so loud, it's just horrifying. And the bang was like, the echo lasted, seemed like minutes.
The shots rang out just a couple of miles from downtown Boston, here in the Orchard Park housing project, an urban free fire zone in the war on drugs. For more than 5 years, Jeff Coy was a foot soldier in that war, a housing cop working undercover. He had come close to death. Soon, his life would be in danger again, but this time in a way he never expected.
I remember all of this street, from the bottom all the way up to the top, was lined on both sides with drug dealers, packed.
37, coming back. In 1990, the DEA asked Coy to go undercover one more time. 37, you copy? To infiltrate perhaps the most violent drug gang in Boston. But, you better get ready. A gang called the New York Boys because its leaders came from Queens, New York. A gang law enforcement says introduced crack to Boston. A gang that operated on Jeff Coy's turf. Orchard Park.
It was just, you'd have to have been here to really feel the magnitude of what was happening.
This is the man who ran the New York Boys, Darryl Whiting. He called himself God. He ran his empire from the Crown Social and Recreation Hall, a drug gang hangout according to police. Whiting said his club was just a place for neighborhood kids to gather after school.
He was drawing the young people of that community, young kids of color, into his organization and plying them with gifts, holding himself out as, this is what you ought to be just like me. I'm Darryl Whiting, but I'm really known as God.
To then U.S. Attorney Wayne Budd, the man who called himself God wasn't just another drug dealer.
So this is a picture of Darryl Whiting driving up in front of one of his businesses in his $52,000 special Mercedes-Benz, which he paid cash for.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Paul Kelly was the lead prosecutor on the case.
And you can see in the back of the picture, just right here, that is the face of Jeffrey Coy, the undercover operative. He actually posed as an individual known as J. Reid. He went in with a lot of gold jewelry draped around his neck, held himself out as a drug dealer from across town, and began buying quantities of cocaine from members of the New York Boys drug organization.
Buying drugs and guns from the New York Boys, Coy worked his way up the chain of command. In this picture, Coy is buying cocaine from one of Whiting's top lieutenants, nicknamed Ease, while Whiting looks on.
This was heavy action.
Posing as drug dealer J. Reid, Jeff Coy slowly built the case against the New York Boys. But staying undercover was becoming harder and harder.
I didn't want to die. But I expected to. And I had to deal with that daily.
Coy knew the gang would kill him if they found out who he really was. And then the New York Boys received a tip from a woman who told them Jeff Coy was a cop.
The crew called me and they said, come down, we got to talk. They said, we got to talk to you. I said, all right, I'll be down. I said, what's up? They said, yo, just come down, man, we got to talk, it's important. I knew. I could feel it.
Coy went down to Orchard Park to meet with the gang, to confront their suspicions. He told them he would shoot the woman.
That always create a much more volatile situation than they'd be ready to deal with. So that often they'd say, this guy is crazy.
DEA agent Peter Murphy was Jeff Coy's backup.
We were able to get out of there that day, but from that point on, and Jeffrey was a changed person. What happened? Paranoia developed. He came to see me one day with 2 guns, and at that point I said, no, we can't do business this way. It isn't the way we operate. It's too dangerous.
A few weeks later, Jeff Coy was taken off the case. The stress of years undercover, of having to constantly pretend to be someone other than himself, to risk death daily, had finally caught up with him.
Had he been doing undercover work for too long?
In my judgment, yes. He was a different person, frankly, from when I saw him in 1988. I noticed there had been a significant slide.
The line between the real Jeff Coy and his undercover alter ego, Jay Reid, had begun to blur.
Jay Reid had developed to the point where he was his own entity, aside and apart from Jeff Coy. Jay Reid represented all of the things that my mother taught me not to be. I didn't grow up lying. I didn't grow up ruthless. I didn't grow up dealing drugs. Jeff Coy started to get smaller and smaller. The way at one point Jeff Coy was large and Jay Reid was small, but Jay Reid grew. Jeff Coy shrunk.
Did Jeff Coy disappear?
Once in a while I seen a smile. I saw the attitude. I saw the caring. I saw the commitment.
But that kid who you first met who said, I want a job.
He was gone. That youth that came through the door, he was a changed individual.
Confused, uncertain, and angry, Jeff Coy tumbled downhill fast. His personal and professional lives were shattered. He began using drugs himself. Coy was arrested by the Boston police after a fight with his girlfriend. He had a mental breakdown and was hospitalized.
The DEA took Jeff Coy to see psychologist John Barry, who specializes in working with undercover cops.
The memory will never go. He'll always have the memory of many of these things. And in this way, it has affected his personality probably for the rest of his life.
Jeff Coy's undercover work, despite the anguish, was not wasted. A second man went undercover and finished the job Coy had started. On December 12, 1990, the DEA and the Boston police swept into Orchard Park and rounded up the New York boys. 57 were indicted. Most pled guilty. 50 went to jail. Jeff Coy testified at Darrell Whiting's trial. Whiting was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. We spoke to him at the federal penitentiary in Leavenworth.
I'm innocent. I didn't have anything to do with that.
He is appealing his conviction.
You didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Expect me to believe that.
If you want to, that's on you, you know.
If you could say one thing to Jeff Coy / Jay Reid, what would you want to say to him?
I hope he's better.
Excellent.
Jeff Coy is better. He's survived his ordeal and is studying to be a professional photographer.
I did a good job of the makeup.
He is on disability, still sees Dr. Barry, and is slowly rebuilding his life.
I believe Jeff is a hero. You will not see the waving flags. You will not see the banners. The people will not know about Jeff and the commitment that he put forth. But Jeff is a hero. He saved lives. He changed the city.
We stopped him.
Are you proud of the job you did?
Yes. I'm very proud of the job I did.
A dirty, dangerous job left to an undercover cop who paid a personal price for the war on drugs.
I gave up my life for 6 years. So the kids could walk down the street like that.
David Lewis, CNN Special Assignment.
If you'd like to write to CNN Special Assignment, the address is Special Assignment Staff, Post Office Box 2727, Atlanta, Georgia, and the zip is 30301.
I was going through some brokerage confirmations, and bang, it hit me.
This has got to stop.
These trades were my idea. I made the decisions, and yet I still paid all this commission.